on the day we were supposed to get our marriage certificate. I waited at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau for the entire day. Sebastian never showed up, and his phone was switched off. That night, I saw a post on WeChat from his childhood sweetheart, Maria. No matter when, as long as I need you, you'll always be by my side. Below the caption was a photo. Maria was lying in a hospital bed wearing a patient gown, and the person standing beside her talking with the doctor was none other than Sebastian. Chapter 1. When I showed up at work with 2 dark circles under my eyes, my colleague Gloria teased me. So what's going on? You got your marriage certificate yesterday and didn't even post anything on WeChat. Were you too busy getting down to business? She emphasized the words getting down to business, and the rest of the colleagues joined in the teasing. I took the wedding candies I had prepared out of my bag and tossed them onto the desk. Help yourselves if you want some. Let's celebrate my return to being single. Everyone looked at each other in confusion, and the atmosphere in the office instantly turned awkward. I didn't want to explain any further. After all, tearing open a wound that hadn't healed yet was a kind of pain I had no desire to experience again. I returned to my seat, turned on my computer, and started today's work, but my mind felt foggy. I had waited the entire day, yet Sebastian never called. Not even a single explanation. When the sun came up, I sent Sebastian a message on WeChat. We should break up. Then I blocked both his phone number and his WeChat. Just like that, it was over. I was the one who chose to walk away. After a while, Gloria leaned over, quietly glancing at my monitor, and lowered her voice. Did you have a fight with Sebastian? If being stood up on the very day you were supposed to register your marriage counted as just a fight, then there would hardly be any real problems in a relationship. I was about to speak when someone suddenly called my name. Luviana. Come in for a moment. The tone sounded as if the speaker was ready to bite someone. The person calling me was my direct boss, Samuel. He was a ruthless figure with a sharp tongue. Despite his young age, he was already the head of our department, capable, good-looking, and with a terrible temper. Of course, his temper far outweighed his looks. Even so, it didn't stop the young women in our company from chasing after him. But so far, none of them had succeeded. I didn't dare delay. After exchanging a look with Gloria, I stood up and went to Samuel's office. Boss, you were looking for me? Samuel lifted his head from the computer, his dark eyes filled with a chilling coldness. The next second, he actually curled his lips into a smile. Then he turned the computer screen toward me and raised an eyebrow. Luviana, care to explain what these words at the end of this document mean? I froze for a moment and looked blankly at the screen. At the end of the document, in glaring letters, were the words, asshole, and this document was the proposal I had sent Samuel 10 minutes earlier. I stood there stiffly, like a stone statue, unable to explain myself. So what? You got your marriage certificate yesterday and now you're planning to quit and go home to be a housewife? Samuel's words carried a trace of sarcasm, but they struck right at my sore spot and snapped me back to my senses. Boss, I'm sorry. I broke up yesterday, so I'm not in the best state today. I'll revise every problematic part of the document until you're satisfied. Chapter 2. When Samuel heard that I had broken up, he looked at me in surprise. Unexpectedly, he didn't say anything else and simply told me to leave. By the time I finished working overtime and walked out of the company that evening, it was already past 10. The proposal for Samuel had long been sent to his email. The real reason I stayed so late was that I wanted to waste time at the office. When I returned home, there was a pair of men's shoes at the entrance. I recognized them immediately. They belonged to Sebastian. The door to my apartment used a fingerprint lock. Although Sebastian and I had never lived together, I had still registered his fingerprint. He was lying on the couch with his eyes closed, resting. When he heard me come in, he opened his eyes and sat up. His face was full of exhaustion, as if he were waiting for me to show concern first. How ridiculous. I placed my handbag aside and ignored his presence completely. I walked to the water dispenser, poured myself a glass of water, and took slow sips. Luviana, are you angry? He finally asked, his voice slightly hoarse. He must have been at the hospital taking care of Maria the whole time, probably too busy even to drink water. Truly devoted. I swallowed the last sip and looked at him. We're over. My voice sounded calm. but I knew it was only because I had exhausted all my strength. Once you stop expecting anything, the pain begins to fade away little by little. Sebastian stood up and walked toward me, trying to take my hand, but I deliberately stepped aside. He sighed. Luviana, I'm sorry. I couldn't go with you to register our marriage yesterday because Maria had food poisoning and was hospitalized. The apology sounded light and empty, like apologizing to a stranger on the subway after accidentally stepping on their foot, mostly to avoid further trouble. I had thought I could deal with everything calmly, but his indifferent attitude still made anger flare up inside me. So you had to take care of her every single moment without leaving her side? You didn't even have time to call me? I did want to call you, but I left in such a hurry that my phone had already run out of battery and shut off yesterday morning. Does the hospital not even have a power bank? Faced with my questioning, Sebastian fell silent for a moment. He seemed unwilling to argue with me. Luviana, Maria is still in the hospital. You know she comes from a blended family. Her family members are indifferent toward her. She can only rely on me. The unspoken meaning was clear. She's already pitiful enough. Why can't you be a little more understanding? This wasn't the first time. Many times before, whenever something happened to Maria, no matter how much I needed Sebastian at that moment, he would always choose Maria without hesitation. I was too tired to argue anymore. After all, a loser who had already chosen to walk away didn't have the right to maintain any kind of proud posture. But admitting I was the loser was still better than remaining trapped in this relationship. Struggling endlessly, I forced my emotions to calm down before speaking again. Sebastian, whatever happens between you and Maria has nothing to do with me anymore. I meant it when I said we're breaking up. Please leave. I walked over and opened the door, quietly looking at him. He froze for a moment. His expression was filled with confusion and helplessness. Before leaving, he threw one last sentence at me, then calmed down first. In a few days, before he could finish the rest of the sentence, I had already closed the door. Chapter 3. Sebastian and I met through a blind date. To be honest, the moment I first saw him, I already had the thought that I would marry no one but him, because he truly matched every requirement I had for the kind of man I liked: broad shoulders, long legs, the classic look of a handsome man, clean and refined, gentle-tempered, always speaking in an unhurried and calm manner. His job was good as well. He was a university lecturer. After dinner that day, I took the initiative to add Sebastian on WeChat. Not only did he accept, he also took me to see a movie afterward and drove me home when it ended. From that day on, we started meeting frequently. In the end, I was the one who confessed first, and we naturally began dating. About half a year into our relationship, one day I called Sebastian, but a girl answered the phone. At first, I thought I had dialed the wrong number. Then a sweet, delicate female voice called out to me from the other end. You must be Sister Luviana, right? I'm Maria. Sebastian is in the kitchen cooking for me right now. I'll have him call you back in a moment. That was the first time I learned about Maria. Later that night, Sebastian returned my call and took the initiative to mention her. He said Maria was the daughter of his neighbor. They had grown up together. She had been studying in another city and had only recently returned after graduating. Sebastian explained it casually, but a woman's intuition told me things were not that simple. The next time we met, I finally met Maria. She was small and very cute, with a sweet mouth. The moment she saw me, she immediately praised how pretty I was. She came together with Sebastian. From the moment they walked in until they stood in front of me, her arm had been wrapped around his the entire time, with no sign that she intended to let go. I smiled and, without making a scene, reached out and pulled Sebastian to sit beside me. Then I looked Maria up and down and deliberately asked him, "Such a cute neighbor girl. How come I've never heard you mention her before?" Maria naturally sat down across from us. When she heard my question to Sebastian, she took the initiative to explain instead. Sebastian was probably afraid Sister Luviana might misunderstand our relationship. That explanation only made things sound more suspicious. I let out a small laugh. That wouldn't happen. Maria, you look much younger than us. Sebastian might be old enough to chase younger women, but someone as young as a little sprout like you probably isn't even on his radar. Maria smiled and looked straight at me. I heard from Sebastian that you and he are the same age. Sister Luviana, but I'm only 5 years younger than both of you. If you think about it that way, I'm actually the perfect kind of young grass. I almost laughed. With words like that, she might as well have said directly that she wanted Sebastian to pursue her. So I spoke plainly. Then do you like older men? Or do you like your Sebastian? The next second, Maria began acting coquettishly towards Sebastian right in front of me. Sebastian, I told you I shouldn't come. Look, Sister Luviana still misunderstood us. Sebastian had been lowering his head, studying the menu and picking dishes. He hadn't been paying attention to our conversation. Only when Maria called him did he look up. I already told Luviana that you're my neighbor's younger sister. Don't worry, she won't misunderstand. Even though Maria had deliberately tried to show off how close she was to Sebastian in front of me, Sebastian's attitude was clear. She was the neighbor girl. I was the official girlfriend. There was no need for me to keep confronting her and make things awkward. After dinner, I used the excuse that Sebastian and I still had something to do later. Sebastian then told Maria to head home first. Before leaving, Maria cast an unwilling glance at Sebastian. When she realized his attention wasn't on her at all, she left reluctantly. That same night, a WeChat account named Mem sent me a friend request. The note attached read, Maria. Originally, I didn't really want to accept it, but thinking that this girl clearly had designs on Sebastian, I decided to accept anyway. After adding her, I idly scrolled through WeChat moments. Then I noticed Maria had just posted something. There was no caption, only a picture of a cow eating grass. Chapter 4. I woke up just as the sky was beginning to lighten. All night long, my dreams had been filled with Sebastian and Maria, chaotic scenes that were just as irritating as reality. Since I couldn't sleep peacefully anymore, I simply got up and went to wash up. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a haggard face staring back at me, like a woman who had been abandoned after years of devotion. Since Sebastian and I were already over, the beginning of a new life was imminent. An hour later, seeing my reflection with carefully done makeup, my mood inexplicably improved. When I arrived at the company, it was still early and my colleagues hadn't arrived yet. Surprisingly, there was a takeout bag sitting on my desk. Inside it was a sandwich and a cup of hot milk. Sebastian used to occasionally order breakfast for me, and it was always a sandwich and hot milk. Clearly, this was his attempt to make peace with me, but this time, I wasn't going to soften because of such small gestures. I picked up the bag and walked straight to the trash can and threw it in. After a loud thud, I clapped my hands and was about to return to my desk. When I turned around, however, I saw Samuel leaning against the office doorway, looking at me with an unreadable expression. Good morning, boss. I greeted him proactively. Samuel pointed at the trash can. Throwing something away? I didn't understand what he meant, so I turned my head and glanced at the trash can. There was nothing wrong. I had thrown it inside, not outside. When I turned back, I looked at him cautiously. Boss, if you have any trash, I can throw it away for you too. Samuel let out a cold laugh. Throwing away trash is fine, but what does it mean to throw away my breakfast? His breakfast? Could it be that the one just now? I immediately turned around and fished the takeout bag out of the trash can. Unfortunately, the hot milk had spilled when I threw it away, soaking the sandwich packaging, and even the takeout bag itself wasn't spared. Only then did I notice the order information printed on the side of the bag. The name on it was clearly Samuel. Had I been blind just now? Not only had I failed to see the receipt stuck on the side, I had also confidently assumed it was sent by Sebastian. Forcing myself to smile awkwardly, I raised my head and admitted my mistake. Boss, I'm really sorry. I thought this delivery was mine. I'll go out right now and buy you another one. I'll be back very soon. Without waiting for Samuel's response, I grabbed my phone and rushed out. Unfortunately, it was the morning rush hour. The elevator refused to come up, and since our office was on a high floor, I had no choice but to take the stairs down. After finally making it downstairs and crossing the street to the bakery opposite the building, my phone received a message from Samuel. Buy 20 identical breakfasts and bring them back. 20? The number alone made my heart ache, but I didn't dare refuse. I immediately asked the staff to pack 20 sets. When the bakery clerk and I carried 20 breakfasts back into our department, Samuel was, surprisingly, standing in the office area holding a morning meeting with everyone. When he saw me enter, he raised his wrist to check his watch. There was a hint of schadenfreude in his tone. Luviana, you're late. All my colleagues turned to look at me at the same time. Their eyes were filled with sympathy? If I wasn't mistaken, it really was sympathy. Being late meant a salary deduction, that was inevitable, but it didn't seem like something that would make everyone look at me like this. A bad feeling crept up inside me. Still, I delivered one breakfast to Samuel first and spoke respectfully. Boss, your breakfast. Samuel took it, then called out to the others. Breakfast from Luviana. Don't be shy, help yourselves. Then he glanced at me with a half smile before turning and walking back into his office. After surviving that ordeal, I sat down at my desk. Gloria poked me from the side. What's going on? I rubbed my sore legs helplessly. I brought this on myself. Who told me to be blind enough to throw Samuel's breakfast into the trash? Gloria gave me a look that basically said you're unbelievable. Then delivered some bad news. Samuel said during the morning meeting that starting this month, anyone who is late 3 times or more in a month has to treat the entire department to a big meal. My right eyelid twitched violently. Now I finally understood why everyone had looked at me with sympathy, including today. This was exactly the 3rd time I had been late this month, and today happened to be the last day of the month. What kind of cursed luck was this? Chapter 5. I scheduled the dinner for my colleagues on Friday night. Since the next 2 days were the weekend, everyone could stay longer and enjoy themselves. The place I chose was a Korean barbecue restaurant. Crisp green lettuce wrapped around sizzling grilled meat, paired with beer, after 5 busy workdays. Even a group of polished office professionals couldn't help but feel a bit of everyday warmth. But enjoying that relaxed atmosphere had one important condition. Samuel should not be sitting next to me. Unfortunately, things rarely go the way we hope. After unintentionally offending him several times recently, I had started to feel intimidated by him deep down. I was constantly afraid that if I made another mistake, I might anger this formidable boss again and he would find another way to make my life miserable. Compared to my uneasiness, Samuel seemed completely at ease. He was just eating barbecue, yet somehow he managed to make even that look elegant. My alcohol tolerance wasn't great. Whether I drank or not depended entirely on my mood, although I had been deliberately ignoring the sadness of the breakup over the past few days. After a few drinks, the melancholy quietly crept out from every corner of my body and gathered together. At some point, my vision became misty. A tear suddenly slipped down and dropped straight into the glass in front of me. I hurriedly raised my hand to wipe it away, afraid someone might notice. But a tissue was handed to me at that moment, accompanied by Samuel's teasing voice. I only asked you to treat everyone to dinner. It's not enough to make you cry, is it? To be honest, I really hadn't wanted to cry. But for some reason, once the emotions broke loose, I couldn't stop them. The tears poured out like a flood after a dam had collapsed. Even Samuel hadn't expected my tears to keep increasing. He quickly grabbed more tissues, while I, with blurred vision, stumbled toward the restroom. I stayed in the restroom for more than 10 minutes before finally managing to regain control of my emotions. When I came out, Samuel was actually waiting outside. He had a cigarette between his fingers but hadn't lit it. When he saw me, he tossed it straight into the trash can nearby and walked toward me. Luviana, are you okay? I forced a smile and tried to explain my earlier behavior. Boss, I'm fine. The barbecue smoke got into my eyes just now. Samuel glanced at me and mercilessly exposed the lie. Your smile is fake, and your excuse is terrible. Straight to the point. I laughed awkwardly, but he reached out, grabbed my wrist, and led me back toward the dining area. You still know how to play dumb. That means you're not that drunk. In reality, my steps had already become a little unsteady. Samuel was probably holding me to keep me from falling. Thinking about it that way, he was actually quite considerate. His pale, slender fingers carried a hint of warmth as they rested around my wrist. Strangely, it made my heart feel warm. My fear of him faded a little. During the time we had been gone, the others had clearly drunk quite a lot. Compared to earlier, the atmosphere had become far more lively. Everyone was toasting each other. By the time we returned, Samuel had already let go of my wrist. As soon as we sat down, several colleagues gathered around to toast him. At the company, they were his subordinates, but outside the office, with alcohol involved and without the formal environment, They weren't as intimidated by Samuel as usual. One after another they raised their glasses, even Gloria came over to toast him. Samuel's drinking capacity was impressive, even though it was only beer. With so many people drinking with him, it still added up. Yet after a full round, his face was only slightly flushed. Watching from the side, I secretly raised my thumb in admiration. Truly impressive. Perhaps because he felt a little warm from the alcohol. Samuel leaned back in his chair with his eyes closed. With one hand, he loosened his tie, then casually tossed it aside. He unbuttoned 3 buttons at the collar of his shirt. His refined features extended downward from his jawline to his neck, and then further. I stared, completely captivated, unconsciously swallowing. But Samuel happened to open his eyes at that moment and caught me in the act. A mischievous smile curled onto his lips. Silently, he mouthed a sentence to me. It made me so embarrassed that I wished the ground would open up so I could hide inside it. He said, "Do you like what you see?" Chapter 6. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. The annoying knocking kept echoing in my ears. Even though I had wrapped myself completely in the blanket, the sound stubbornly continued to pound against my eardrums. I threw the blanket aside and shot upright. Full of morning irritation, I stormed to the door and yanked it open. Knock, knock, knock. Don't you know people are sleeping? Sebastian stood at the doorway with one hand still raised in the air, staring at me in surprise. Our eyes met. From the shock in his gaze, I could clearly see what I looked like at that moment, clothes disheveled, hair messy, and anger written all over my face. Completely different from the composed and graceful image I usually showed in front of him. In the past, to maintain a good impression in his mind, I would always put on makeup and carefully choose my clothes before meeting him. This was the first time I had appeared like this. But it didn't matter anymore. Sebastian quickly recovered from his surprise and returned to his usual calm expression. "Luviana, I couldn't get through to your phone, so I came to your place. But the fingerprint lock doesn't work anymore." "Yeah, I deleted it," I said bluntly. "Can I come in and talk with you?" "What if I say no?" "Then we'll talk here." Judging from his attitude, he clearly wasn't leaving without a conversation today. But if we really talked at the doorway, more people would see me in this state. After weighing it briefly, I gave in. "Come in and talk." I walked straight to the sofa and sat down. Sebastian followed behind and closed the door. In the past, whenever he came over, I would happily prepare all kinds of fruits and snacks for him. Now I couldn't even be bothered to invite him to sit. Sebastian pulled over a chair himself and sat across from me, looking at me calmly. "Luviana, it's been several days. Your anger should have cooled down by now." I couldn't help laughing in disbelief. "Sebastian, your comprehension can't be that bad, right? I said we broke up." "Break up. Understand? That means goodbye. Farewell. Never seeing each other again." Seeing how firm my attitude was, Sebastian's expression finally shifted slightly. Is it just because I didn't show up on the day we were supposed to register our marriage? He still didn't understand. Actually, I didn't understand either. If I truly wasn't important to him, why was he unwilling to let go after I had already decided to leave? "Sebastian, do you love me?" It was such a sentimental question, and yet the first time I asked it was after we had broken up. I watched him carefully, unwilling to miss even the slightest change in his expression. Sebastian frowned slightly and remained silent. It was obvious that the question wasn't easy for him to answer. Or perhaps he was trying to think of a response that would satisfy everyone. But I didn't want to hear it anymore. "Forget it. It's obvious. You don't love me. Stop lying to yourself." I said the words lightly, but my heart was bleeding. 2 years of time. In the end, it had all been my one-sided devotion. "Luviana." He had just begun to speak when his phone vibrated. The caller ID showed that Maria was calling. He glanced at me and hesitated for a moment before answering. Maria's coquettish voice immediately came through the receiver. "Sebastian, I'm so hungry. Can you come cook for me?" Her tone was sweet and natural, unlike me, who had always been so careful when asking anything of him, afraid that my requests might annoy him. Sebastian responded briefly and hung up. He was about to speak again, but I interrupted him first. "Maria needs you. Go ahead. Don't keep her waiting." "Luviana, Maria is just a younger sister," he repeated once again. The way he said it suddenly felt so fake to me. Didn't he get tired of playing this self-deceiving game? I decided to tear apart the last thin layer of pretense. Sebastian, ask yourself honestly, do you really treat Maria like a sister? And does she really treat you like a brother? Honestly, there's nothing wrong with an older man dating a younger woman. Perhaps my tone was too aggressive. Because Sebastian froze for a moment. When he recovered, he gave a bitter smile. Luviana, I never realized before that your words could be so sharp. People have many sides. Before, I only wanted to show you my best side. Now I'm tired. I was tired of pretending. Actually, this side of you is good. It feels more real. I didn't want to keep arguing anymore. Sebastian, let's end it here. After saying that, I stopped looking at him and turned my face toward the window. Outside, the sunlight was bright, and the sky was faintly blue. The sound of the door opening followed. Then the room fell completely silent. His polite and refined manner had remained the same from beginning to end. Chapter 7. Sebastian is allergic to beef, while I absolutely love steak. In the past, every time we went on a date, I always chose dishes that suited his preferences. It had been a long time since I had eaten steak. Now, I could finally satisfy my own cravings. Inside the Western restaurant, I chose a corner seat, quiet, with a view of the scenery outside the window. While waiting for my food, I accidentally noticed a familiar figure sitting diagonally across from me. Samuel? Why would he be here? Last night, after he caught me secretly staring at him, I had been too embarrassed to keep sitting beside him, so I moved over and squeezed next to Gloria, drinking and chatting with the other colleagues. When dinner ended, I paid the bill and practically fled in a taxi. I had thought that after not seeing each other over the weekend, the awkwardness would fade by Monday. But to my surprise, just one day later, I ran into him again. Fortunately, Samuel didn't seem to notice me. Today he was dressed in casual clothes. Compared to the mature, composed look he had in a suit, the casual outfit made him look more energetic and handsome. But he was still wearing sunglasses while sitting inside the restaurant, giving off a very unapproachable vibe. His brows were slightly furrowed, as if he were impatient. From time to time, he lifted his wrist to check the time. He was probably waiting for someone. Since he hadn't noticed me, that was for the best. Otherwise, he might think I was stalking him, which would be awkward. I quietly shifted further inside, using the booth across from me as cover. Coming out to eat a simple meal had somehow made me feel like a thief in hiding. I silently complained to myself. Hello, are you Samuel? A pleasant female voice sounded. It seemed this was the person Samuel had been waiting for. Samuel simply replied with a cold mem. Compared to the woman's enthusiasm, his attitude was icy. I secretly peeked over. Samuel looked as aloof as ever and still hadn't taken off his sunglasses. As for the woman sitting across from him, I could only see her back. She wore a red dress and had long wavy hair. Her tall figure alone suggested she was definitely beautiful. The woman sat down naturally and said apologetically, "Sorry, there was traffic on the way, so I'm a bit late." Samuel stingily responded with another Then he added, "Luckily you're not my employee." In my mind, I silently added, if you were his employee, being late 3 times would mean treating the entire department to a big dinner. Perhaps sensing Samuel's cold attitude, the woman smiled and introduced herself graciously. "Hello, my name is Ivy. When your mother introduced you to me, she mentioned that you're not very talkative, but as a senior executive in a company, that's understandable. If a leader jokes around too much, it weakens their authority." Hearing that, Samuel surprisingly began talking more. "So my mom didn't tell you about any of my other flaws? Shouldn't introductions focus on strengths?" Ivy asked. Puzzled, Samuel replied, "Honesty is important, isn't it?" Then he said very sincerely, "Aside from being handsome, everything else about me is a flaw." The lemon water I had just taken a sip of sprayed straight out of my mouth. This man was unbelievably narcissistic. Fortunately, Ivy hadn't been drinking anything. Otherwise Samuel's face might have gotten soaked. I suddenly felt sorry for this beautiful woman named Ivy. How unlucky was she to come on a blind date with Samuel? They had only exchanged a few sentences, Yet every single one sounded like he was deliberately driving the conversation off a cliff. If it were me, I would have grabbed my bag and left already. But Ivy had a good temper. Not only did she not get angry, she smiled. Samuel, you said that on purpose, didn't you? Your goal is to irritate me, so I'll leave on my own. Now that his intention had been exposed, Samuel didn't look surprised at all. Since you've figured it out, that saves me the trouble. Order whatever you want. Consider it compensation for making the trip. But Ivy didn't intend to give up. I know you dislike meeting girls through blind dates. Honestly, I don't like it either, but when I saw your photo, I thought you were my type. So I came to meet you. You could also try getting to know me. Maybe I'm your type too. Being handsome really does make a difference. If Samuel were short, awkward, and unattractive, he probably wouldn't be getting this kind of treatment. I silently marveled at the girl's persistence and cautiously leaned out a little to observe Samuel's reaction. But at that exact moment, my eyes met Samuel's. At some point he had already taken off his sunglasses. The instant he saw me, I noticed his previously indifferent eyes brighten slightly. I quickly ducked back down and shifted further to the side, hiding myself until I felt safely concealed. Only then did I dare to breathe normally again, and I definitely didn't dare continue eavesdropping on their conversation. Chapter 8. But Samuel had no intention of letting me off the hook. He actually got up from his seat and walked over, seeing me shrinking into myself like an ostrich trying to hide from disaster. A mischievous smile curled at the corner of his lips. The next second, he reached out and pulled me up. Before my brain could even process what was happening, he was already holding my hand and standing with me in front of Ivy. Sorry, but I actually have a girlfriend. I looked at him in shock and was about to explain, but the dull pain from his grip on my hand made me shut my mouth. Samuel was threatening me. Ivy clearly didn't believe it. She looked me up and down, her brows gradually knitting together. If you already have a girlfriend, why didn't you tell your mother? Without the slightest change in expression, Samuel began making things up on the spot. My mom doesn't approve of our relationship. She's been trying to break us up, which is why she forced me to come on this blind date. But my girlfriend is already pregnant. I glanced silently at my completely flat stomach, unsure whether to laugh or cry. As Samuel had clearly hoped, Ivy cursed. What a psycho, grabbed her bag, and stormed off with a dark expression. Samuel, in an excellent mood, returned to his seat and snapped his fingers to call the waiter over to order. When he noticed I was still standing there in a daze, he poked me lightly with his finger. What? Did someone hit your pressure point and freeze you? The waiter had already approached with a professional smile. Sir, how may I assist you? Samuel pointed at me. Do you have anyone here who knows how to release pressure points? The waiter looked at me in confusion, obviously not understanding what he meant. To avoid causing unnecessary trouble for the waiter, I sat down across from Samuel, resting my chin on one hand. I stared at him directly, waiting for him to repay the favor he had just forced me into. After ordering, the waiter left. Samuel lifted his eyelids slightly. The corner of his lips curved up, looking as if he had already seen right through me. Go on. What reward do you want? I suddenly felt a little excited. Anything? Samuel glanced at me from the corner of his eye, and my confidence instantly deflated. Helping the boss out of a difficult situation is the duty of us subordinates. How could I possibly ask for anything in return? I shamelessly flattered him with a straight face. Samuel clearly enjoyed it. He smiled faintly and gave me a reassuring line. Don't worry, I won't treat you unfairly. After leaving the Western restaurant, I was about to say goodbye, but Samuel said that if I didn't have any plans that afternoon, he hoped I could accompany him to pick out a gift. Since it was an invitation from my boss, it wasn't easy to refuse. Besides, I had nothing to do at home anyway, so I agreed. At first, I thought Samuel was buying a gift for a client, but it turned out the gift was for his mother. Is it a birthday present for your mom? I asked. Samuel was standing in front of a display counter, studying the jewelry inside carefully, without even looking up. He replied, It's to save my life. After messing up that blind date today, my mom will probably skin me alive. The moment he mentioned his mother, Samuel's usual arrogance completely disappeared. Instead, he looked like a kid who had caused trouble and was afraid of getting scolded at home. For someone who could make Samuel this nervous, his mother must be quite a formidable person. In that case, Ivy, who Samuel had deliberately driven away earlier, could actually be considered lucky. The real question was, who would be the unfortunate woman to become this family's future daughter-in-law? Thinking about it, I suddenly burst out laughing. When I looked up again, I saw Samuel staring at me with pursed lips and clear dissatisfaction. Luviana, I brought you here to help pick a gift. Focus. Okay? Okay. Okay. I raised my hand guiltily in surrender, and only then did Samuel lower his head again. I quickly focused my attention on the jewelry in the display case. Sister Luviana? A familiar female voice suddenly rang out. My back stiffened instantly. I didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard her, but the clear sound of approaching footsteps told me she was already walking toward us. Just as expected, Sebastian appeared with her. Maria's hand was tightly interlocked with Sebastian's fingers. Her face glowed with a sweet, happy smile, exactly like a couple that had just fallen deeply in love. When Sebastian noticed my gaze resting on their intertwined hands, he instinctively tried to pull his hand away, but Maria pressed firmly on the back of his hand. Sebastian stopped moving. It seemed that the two of them had finally moved past their fake brother and sister relationship and officially upgraded to lovers. Chapter 9. Sister Luviana. I didn't expect to run into you here. What a pleasant surprise. I was actually planning to invite you to dinner to thank you. Your decision to step aside made it possible for Sebastian and me to be together. With the posture of a victor, Maria arrogantly declared her claim in front of me. Compared to Maria's smugness, Sebastian appeared much calmer. However, when his eyes met my mocking gaze, there was a faint trace of discomfort in his expression. After all, he had come to see me early yesterday morning asking to get back together, and today he was already with someone else. The speed of that change was astonishing. In public, I originally didn't intend to say anything unpleasant, but when I saw the provocative look in Maria's eyes, I changed my mind. I wasn't going to let her flaunt her affection in front of me so smugly and then leave satisfied. Even if I couldn't change anything, I could at least make her uncomfortable. Just as I was about to speak, an arm suddenly wrapped around my waist. Surprised, I turned my head and saw Samuel already standing beside me with a smile, adopting an intimate posture. Darling, is this the ex-boyfriend who got dumped by you? Compared to me, he's clearly inferior. Samuel's single sentence instantly changed the expressions of the two people standing opposite us, especially Sebastian. For once, cracks appeared in his usually calm face. He released Maria's hand and stepped forward. Stopping in front of me, his expression was complicated in a way I had never seen before. So he's the reason you broke up with me? The reason you refused every time I tried to get back together with you? Sebastian's words didn't provoke much reaction from me, but Maria, hearing them, turned deathly pale. She bit her lower lip hard and stared unwillingly at Sebastian's back. Seeing their reactions, a faint sense of satisfaction rose within me. But I didn't intend to twist the truth. Sebastian, you know very well why we broke up. The kind of love I want is wholehearted and exclusive. It can't tolerate a third person interfering. My words carried a clear implication. Maria's face turned even paler. Sebastian stood there stiffly, staring at me in silence. Seeing that he continued to look at me, Maria could no longer restrain herself. She stepped forward and tried to take his hand, but he avoided it. Left with no choice, she grabbed the hem of his shirt and said pitifully, Sebastian, Sister Luviana already has someone new. Let's go. Don't disturb them. Samuel, who had been quietly watching the scene, suddenly let out a cold laugh. Then he leaned closer to me, his lips brushing near my ear. Darling, it seems your ex-boyfriend still can't forget you. Looks like I'll have to keep a closer eye on you. After all, better safe than sorry. He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was obvious. At such close proximity, Samuel's lips were almost touching my ear. My heartbeat suddenly sped up, and my face turned red without me realizing it. This entire scene was witnessed by Sebastian. The jealousy filling his usually indifferent eyes was impossible to miss. People in the jewelry store had begun glancing toward us with curiosity. Some even started whispering among themselves, speculating about what was happening. I had nothing to hide, but some people clearly had guilty consciences. The surrounding whispers made Maria uneasy. Perhaps she was afraid people would discover that she had interfered in someone else's relationship. Her voice was almost trembling with tears. Sebastian. Let's go, please. Sebastian gave me one last look. Then, like a puppet that had lost its soul, he allowed Maria to pull him away. Only after they completely disappeared did I deflate like a punctured balloon. I had always known that Sebastian might end up with Maria, but yesterday he had just come to me asking for reconciliation, and today he was openly holding someone else's hand while strolling through the mall. If Samuel hadn't deliberately provoked him earlier, he probably would have simply allowed Maria to show off in front of me before leaving. Seeing that I remained silent for a long time, Samuel patted his shoulder. Well, want to borrow it for a good cry? I bit my lip and shook my head. Boss, I'm sorry. I can't stay and help you pick a gift anymore. I want to go home. Chapter 10. Just as I was saying goodbye to Samuel and preparing to go home, he gave me two choices. Go home alone and lick my wounds, or go to the beach with a handsome man and enjoy the sea breeze. He told me to choose one. I chose the latter. I had thought that the beach at night would be nothing but the salty sea wind, the waves crashing endlessly against the shore, and an endless stretch of darkness and silence. But to my surprise, it was incredibly lively. In order to make money, vendors had organized an electronic music beer festival by the sea. Young men and women dressed lightly gathered beneath the temporary stage, with the passionate music and dazzling stage lights flashing above them. They twisted their youthful bodies freely to the rhythm. Not far from the stage was a food area. The place was filled with dining tables for customers. Fragrant grilled skewers released an irresistible aroma that drifted through the air with the sea breeze. Spicy bright red crawfish, steamed crabs, along with all kinds of beer and iced drinks, everything was dazzling to the eye. My originally gloomy mood was unexpectedly disrupted by the lively atmosphere. I pointed to an empty table ahead. Boss, how about we drink until we drop? Samuel looked at me with an expression that clearly questioned whether I could handle it. Deliberately dragging out his words. Luviana, don't force yourself if you can't drink. I snorted. Normally I might not be able to, but tonight I definitely can. Samuel shrugged and sat down beside me at the table. I called the waiter over to order food and asked for 6 large mugs of draft beer. Then I looked at Samuel. Is that enough? Samuel glanced at me mockingly. So this is your drink until we drop? Only 6 mugs? Isn't that a bit too little? My hand trembled slightly, gritting my teeth. I told the waiter to add another 6. It soon proved that Samuel's mockery was completely justified. By the time I finished my 3rd mug, my head was already spinning. I couldn't tell if the beer was stronger than usual or if I was simply more susceptible to getting drunk because of my mood. Either way, I felt like I was starting to float. I suddenly stood up and staggered toward the stage. Samuel quickly followed and steadied me. Luviana, where are you going? I smiled at him and pointed at the lively crowd ahead. I'm going dancing. The energetic music made my body sway uncontrollably along with the rhythm. Beside me, Samuel stood with a cold expression on his face, looking completely out of place among the wildly dancing crowd. Whoever first said that alcohol gives people courage was truly a genius. Because under the influence of alcohol, I actually started getting a little handsy with Samuel. Not because I wanted to take advantage of him, just because I wanted him to dance with me. The music was too loud, even when I shouted. Samuel couldn't hear me, so I leaned close to his ear and, with the smell of alcohol on my breath, said, "Boss, dance with me." Just saying it wasn't enough. I grabbed his hand and started moving to the music, pulling him along with me. Samuel reluctantly let himself be dragged by me, but slowly his body began to move with the rhythm as well. He was already strikingly handsome when he had been standing still earlier. His face had been cold and serious. Now that he was dancing, a wild and uninhibited aura seemed to surround him naturally. The girls who had been dancing nearby gradually gathered around him, surrounding him from all sides. Their intentional glances and subtle movements were clearly flirting with him. Meanwhile, I was slowly squeezed out to the side. One particularly bold girl even moved behind him, pressing herself close and raising her arms to wrap around his waist. But Samuel quickly sidestepped and avoided her. Beauty can be tempting. Watching other people eye him so openly made me feel strangely irritated. I pushed aside the girls surrounding him, walked straight in, grabbed Samuel's hand, and pulled him away from the stage. The music behind us gradually faded. Samuel asked in confusion. Not dancing anymore? Without turning my head, I answered sharply, the alcohol making my voice sound unusually intense. No more. He didn't ask anything else. He simply allowed me to pull him forward. Behind me, he seemed to let out a low chuckle that disappeared almost instantly. Only when we reached a quiet stretch of beach with no one around did I finally release his hand and collapse onto the sand with a soft thud. It's quiet here, I mumbled. Samuel sat down beside me. The waves were not far ahead of us, gently washing against the shore again and again. The moon tonight seemed unusually large and round, hanging high in the night sky and casting a soft, cool glow. The scene suddenly reminded me of a line of ancient poetry. I cupped my hands around my mouth like a megaphone and shouted toward the sea. The bright moon rises above the sea, and though we are far apart. Chapter 11. I don't know if alcohol damages the brain, but I suddenly couldn't remember the rest of the line no matter how hard I tried. I turned my head to ask Samuel if he knew it, but I hadn't expected us to be sitting so close. When I turned my head, he turned his face toward me as well. There was still a faint smile lingering at the corner of his eyes. My lips accidentally brushed against his, cool and slightly damp. Yet he didn't pull away. His dark, bright eyes reflected the silver glow of the moonlight, carrying a kind of dangerous charm that made me want to sink deeper. The next second, I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him hard. A gust of sea breeze blew past, making me shiver, and my mind cleared slightly. The ambiguous moment that had entangled us was abruptly cut off by me. Between my lips and teeth, aside from the taste of alcohol, all that remained was Samuel's scent. He frowned slightly, as if dissatisfied that I had stopped at that moment. The dizzy feeling surged back again. I staggered to my feet and walked toward the place where the car was parked. My fingertips dug hard into my palm, using the dull pain. I tried to force myself to stay awake. I had only just escaped from one failed relationship. Was I really going to let myself fall into another hopeless one? I knew very well what kind of person Samuel was, and the distance between us wasn't small in the slightest. If things continued to develop like this, the only person who would end up hurt would be me. By the time I reached the car, Samuel had already opened the door. This time, instead of sitting in the passenger seat, I chose the back seat. Samuel looked at me deeply through the rearview mirror, then lowered his head and started tapping on his phone. Hope Garden Residence, please. After giving the name of my apartment complex, I turned my head to look out the window. It was already late at night. Everything around us was quiet, with only the streetlights casting a dim yellow glow. In the distance, people on the beach seemed determined to stretch the night as long as possible. The celebration was still going on, but I had no interest in watching. After a long while, the car still hadn't started moving. My neck had grown stiff from keeping it turned to one side for so long. The driver will arrive in about 20 minutes. If you're sleepy, you can take a nap first. Samuel's voice sounded just in time to answer my confusion. He had also been drinking, so of course he couldn't drive. I had somehow forgotten that. I softly hummed in acknowledgement, turned my stiff neck back, and closed my eyes. When I woke up again, the car had already stopped steadily at the entrance of my residential complex. A strange man sat in the driver's seat with his eyes closed, breathing evenly as if he had fallen asleep. He must be the designated driver Samuel had hired. Samuel himself sat in the passenger seat, also resting with his eyes closed. I quietly glanced at my phone. It was already 4 a.m. Not wanting to disturb them, I gently opened the car door, hoping to slip away silently. But Samuel still woke up, or perhaps he had only been pretending to rest with his eyes closed. The moment my hand touched the door handle, he opened the passenger side door and stepped out first. He blocked my path, ruining my plan to sneak away. I lowered my head, staring at the tiles in front of my shoes. Boss, thank you for bringing me home. It's very late, you should go back now. I felt too guilty to look at him. Should I walk you upstairs? His voice sounded slightly hoarse. No, it's fine, I can go up by myself. After saying that, I quickly slipped past him and jogged into the residential complex. Only when I realized no one was following behind me did I slow down. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of a car engine starting behind me. The car slowly drove away. I finally let out a breath of relief and turned back to look. The place where Samuel's car had been parked was now empty. My heart suddenly felt a little emptier as well. I gave a self-mocking smile and told myself, Luviana, a toad shouldn't dream of eating swan meat. Chapter 12. I had never come home this late before, so when I pressed the elevator button several times and nothing happened, I didn't know whether the property management had shut the elevator down to save electricity or if it had simply broken. Either way, I had no choice but to take the stairs. Fortunately, the floor I lived on wasn't very high. Unfortunately, many of the lights in the stairwell were broken. Several floors were completely dark, so I had to turn on the flashlight on my phone to see my way. After finally climbing up to my floor and stepping out of the stairwell, I was startled. Someone was sitting outside my door. The moment the motion sensor light flickered on, that person's face was suddenly illuminated. It was Sebastian. I let out a long breath to calm my startled heart. When Sebastian saw me, he pushed himself up against the wall and swayed slightly as he stood. Luviana, why are you back so late? I glanced at him sideways. You've been drinking? He didn't deny it. He simply nodded quietly. During the 2 years I had been with Sebastian, he had never touched alcohol. It seemed that being with Maria had made him happy enough to celebrate with drinks. Thinking that, I shrugged indifferently. Please move aside. I need to go home. Sebastian's usually neat hair was now messy, hanging over his eyes. His clear eyes had turned red. He blocked the door and spoke in a subdued voice. Luviana, that man today, is he really your new boyfriend? If he had appeared in front of me like this in the past, I would have been heartbroken with concern. But now, I felt nothing at all. I only wanted him to leave so I could go inside and sleep. Yes, he's my boyfriend. You have your answer now. Can I go home? Sebastian's face filled with disbelief and pain. He called my name softly, then suddenly pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly as he begged in a trembling voice. Luviana, please don't leave me, okay? I can't live without you. This belated devotion didn't move me at all. Instead, it made me feel disgusted. I struggled to push him away, but he held me too tightly. Sebastian, let go of me. He didn't seem to hear me. He was completely lost in his own emotions, muttering to himself, Luviana, you're the only one I like. What you saw today wasn't real. Maria's family forced her to go on a blind date, but she didn't want to, so she asked me to pretend to be her boyfriend. So that was the explanation. But even after hearing the truth, my heart didn't stir at all. If anything, it only made me want to escape faster. Sebastian, I'm going to count to 3. If you still don't let go, don't blame me. Not only did Sebastian refuse to release me, he even leaned in, trying to kiss me. I lifted my knee and drove it hard into the space between his legs. Ugh, he groaned, finally letting go of me and collapsing to his knees in pain beside the door. The entrance was clear. I quickly unlocked the door and slipped inside, then slammed it shut behind me. After the pain subsided, Sebastian unwillingly continued knocking on the door. Luviana, open the door. I was wrong. Let's go get the marriage certificate tomorrow, okay? The feeling of loving someone had once been real, and the feeling of not loving them anymore was just as real. I rubbed my temples and took out my phone to call Maria. The person on the other end had clearly been woken from sleep. Her voice carried undisguised irritation. Who is it? Don't you check the time before calling? I spoke coldly. Maria. It's me, Luviana. Sebastian is drunk and sitting outside my door. Come take him away. After saying that, I hung up. About half an hour later, Maria arrived at my door, breathing heavily. She kicked the door several times and shouted angrily. Sebastian, that woman is so heartless. You're already like this and she still won't even let you inside. She doesn't care about you at all. Come with me. After a while of arguing and struggling, Maria finally dragged Sebastian away. I got up from the living room, went back to my bedroom, and threw myself onto the bed. Then I fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 13. When I woke up again, it was already broad daylight. I picked up my phone and checked the time. It was 1 p.m. There were several missed calls on my phone. I called Gloria back and told her I was sick. Then I contacted the HR department and asked for a week of sick leave. Since I didn't go to work, there was no message at all from Samuel. Well, that made sense. Last night, I was the one who initiated everything. and I was also the one who stopped it. It seemed like it had nothing to do with him. So what exactly was I secretly hoping for? I booked a plane ticket to South City, planning to get away for a while and clear my mind, while also escaping the troubles of the city. After arriving in South City, I bought a local SIM card and turned off my original one. The sea in South City had a deep blue color that other cities simply didn't have. Days spent enjoying the sea breeze and eating fresh seafood felt carefree and relaxing. But when I lay on the beach sunbathing, whenever someone passed by nearby, I would subconsciously glance up. If it was a stranger's face, I would quickly look away again. If someone's side profile or figure resembled Samuel even slightly, I would look twice. But every time I did, the emptiness in my heart only grew heavier. When I returned to my city, the weather decided not to cooperate. A torrential rainstorm poured over the entire city. After being stuck at the airport for a long time, I finally managed to catch a taxi when the rain weakened slightly. Cars from outside weren't allowed into the residential complex where I lived, so the taxi stopped at the entrance. But just as I got out of the car, the rain suddenly grew heavier again. The moment I opened my umbrella, a strong gust of wind bent the frame of it. Rain poured down on me instantly, soaking me like a drenched chicken. My luggage was still in the taxi's trunk. Because the rain was so heavy, the driver refused to get out. He simply opened the trunk from inside the car and let me get my luggage myself. I closed my broken umbrella and lifted the trunk to grab my suitcase. Suddenly, an umbrella appeared above my head. At first I thought the driver had grown a conscience and come down to help me. But when I looked up, I saw Samuel's cold, striking face. Why are you here? My voice trembled with surprise and an excitement I couldn't quite explain. He didn't answer my question. Instead, he handed the umbrella to me. Get your suitcase first and go home. In this heavy rain, it really wasn't the place for a conversation. I held the umbrella while he easily lifted my suitcase out of the trunk. Then he took the umbrella back from my hand and held it above both of us. Raising an eyebrow slightly, he said, "Which way? You lead." Samuel's umbrella was large and sturdy enough to cover both of us, but the wind still blew from all directions. Aside from the area above our shoulders, the rest of our bodies were soaked, rainwater dripping down our clothes. By the time we reached my apartment, both of us were completely drenched. I told Samuel to take a hot shower in the bathroom first, but he insisted that I go first instead. Unable to argue with him, I showered as quickly as possible and then gave the bathroom to him. After Samuel went in, I found myself in a bit of trouble. His clothes were completely soaked and obviously couldn't be worn again, but I didn't have any men's clothes in my apartment. What on earth was I supposed to give him to wear? Then I suddenly remembered the new bath towel I had bought recently. I found it and, after Samuel finished showering, handed it to him through the slightly opened bathroom door. When he came out of the bathroom, I suddenly understood the meaning of the phrase dangerously seductive. The towel was meant for women, wrapped around Samuel's waist. It barely covered from the waist down to just above the knees, covering only the most essential area. His body was lean and well-defined, the lines of his muscles smooth and firm. His chest and abdominal muscles were sculpted perfectly, and his proportions were flawless. The sight made my blood rush. Something seemed to drip from my nose. I raised my hand and wiped it. It was a nosebleed. Samuel laughed softly but still handed me a tissue. Taking the tissue, I rushed straight into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and splashed cold water across my forehead. I needed to calm down, but the troublemaker himself followed me in. Leaning against the doorway, Samuel filled the already small bathroom with his presence, making the air seem thinner. I suddenly felt like it was difficult to breathe. "Luviana, you seem a little overheated. Maybe you need to cool off." Watching wasn't enough for him, he even deliberately teased me. I lifted my head, about to glare at him, but then I noticed that the towel around his waist had slipped loose. I hurriedly tried to turn my head away, but as I moved, I accidentally hit my head against the bathroom cabinet, and my foot slipped. My whole body tipped backward, about to fall. Samuel reacted instantly, grabbing me and pulling me back. I fell straight into his arms. The desire rising inside me was like a surging wave, threatening to swallow my reason in an instant. I lifted my head, searching Samuel's eyes for even the slightest sign of rejection. Instead, his lips descended and drowned me completely in a kiss. This time, He was the one who started it. Chapter 14. The wind faded, and the rain finally stopped. After calming down, I began to regret it. During the week I spent away, I had thought I had already adjusted my mindset enough to face Samuel again, but his sudden appearance had only made everything more complicated. At this moment, Samuel was lying beside me. I knew he wasn't asleep. I just didn't know what he was thinking. I slightly turned my face and, in the darkness, greedily stole glances at his profile. His sharply defined features lived even deeper and more sculpted beneath the shadows. After a long silence, I spoke first. Tomorrow when we wake up, I'll pretend this never happened. My tone sounded cold and indifferent, as if I were the kind of person who could simply put on her dress and deny everything afterward. But only I knew how much my heart hurt. It would still be easier than hearing him tomorrow say that everything had been just a moment of impulse. Samuel let out a cold laugh. He suddenly leaned over, accurately capturing my lips, just when I began to lose myself in the kiss. He bit down hard on my lower lip and immediately pulled away. The metallic taste of blood mixed with the dull pain on my lips instantly irritated me. Samuel, are you insane? Instead of getting angry, Samuel laughed. Luviana, I've been insane for quite a while now. You said you didn't have a boyfriend back then you disappeared without a word, and now you sleep with me and want to pretend nothing happened afterward. You're a total heartbreaker. His series of accusations left me stunned. Was he really talking about me? What did you just say? I asked. I said you're a heartbreaker. The sentence before that, you slept with me and now want to pretend nothing happened. The one before that, what do you mean by back then you said you didn't have a boyfriend? Explain that. Samuel turned over, refusing to look at me. Only after I pressed him several more times did he reluctantly begin to explain. The day you came to the company for your interview, I saw you. In the elevator, I was standing slightly behind you. You were on the phone with someone, laughing without caring who was around. The person on the other end must have asked if you were nervous about the interview. You said you weren't nervous at all, that the interviewers were just a bunch of short pineapples and tiny potatoes. Nothing to be afraid of. But after you hung up, I saw you wipe the sweat from your palms with a tissue and take several deep breaths. At that moment, I thought you were an interesting girl, so I kept watching you. You were so nervous that you got off on the wrong floor. When you realized it, you hurried back in again. I was the one who pressed the elevator button for you. Later I found out you had applied to our department. When I saw you in the waiting area, I volunteered to be one of the interviewers that day. During the interview, I asked you 2 questions. The first was what you thought of us interviewers. The second was whether you had a boyfriend. But you lied about both. Samuel's words slowly brought the memory back to me. I did remember those 2 questions. At the time, I had even thought that interviewer was strange for asking something like that. But I had absolutely no memory of his face. That day I had been so nervous that I didn't dare make eye contact with any of the interviewers. Although I tried to appear calm and look straight ahead, my gaze couldn't focus at all. My eyes had actually been unfocused the entire time. During the interview, I really was single. Sebastian was someone I met on a blind date after the interview. By the time I officially joined the company a month later, Sebastian and I had just started dating. Back then, I had even thought I was lucky enough to gain both love and career at the same time. Who would have thought that such a coincidence would make Samuel believe I had lied? After realizing what had happened, I laughed. So, boss, you fell for me at first sight? Samuel gave a low, muffled Hearing his confirmation instantly put me in a good mood. Shamelessly, I continued asking, then why didn't you pursue me? You already had a boyfriend at the time. I'm not the kind of person who interferes in someone else's relationship. I nodded in agreement. Then after I broke up, you still didn't pursue me. Samuel raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about that? I racked my brain but couldn't remember a single thing he had done that looked like pursuit. If anything, he had made my life miserable more than once. The day after I heard you broke up, didn't I bring you breakfast? And I watched you throw it straight into the trash. So that was it. I had even wondered later why Samuel's delivery had been placed on my desk. But I had been too afraid to ask. Turns out he had ordered it specially for me. Then why didn't you say anything? Samuel snorted softly. Do you think I don't have any pride? I thought you threw it away on purpose. I burst out laughing. I had never imagined that the decisive and sharp Samuel could have such an awkward side. Seeing me laugh so happily, Samuel turned back toward me. His gaze burned intensely as he looked at me. So, do you really want to pretend that nothing happened today? You guess. All right. Of course not. Chapter 15. On my first day back at work, Samuel generously treated the entire department to dinner. During the meal, he publicly announced 2 pieces of news. The first was that he would be transferred out of our department to work in another one. The second was the official announcement that the 2 of us were together. Every colleague wore the expression of someone who had just discovered shocking gossip. Everyone except Gloria, who looked completely calm, as if she had known all along. Later, she sat down beside me and whispered quietly, "After you broke up with Sebastian, Samuel contacted me privately and asked me to help find out how you were doing. He said he wanted to pursue you. That actually happened?" I had no idea Gloria had kept it so perfectly secret. Then why didn't you tell me? Gloria stuck out her tongue. How would I dare, if I ruined his plans? With his temper, do you think I'd still have a good life at work? No wonder some things had felt too coincidental. That day I asked you to go eat steak with me and you said you were busy. Then I ran into Samuel at the restaurant. You tipped him off, didn't you? Yes. And when I came back from South City, you told him that too? Yes. Gloria nodded rapidly and then revealed another thing I didn't know. Actually, when you went to South City, Samuel had planned to chase after you. He had already booked the flight ticket, but something urgent came up at the company, and he couldn't leave. I turned my head and looked at Samuel, who was surrounded by colleagues toasting him. My heart suddenly filled with emotion. Gloria patted my shoulder and said earnestly, "It's obvious he's very serious about you. Don't miss it." After dinner ended, Samuel and I had both been drinking. He wanted to call for a designated driver, but I stopped him. Instead, we held hands and walked down the brightly lit street. A faint smile remained on Samuel's lips the whole time. "Are you really that happy to be with me, boss?" I teased. He pulled me into his arms. I waited so long for this dream to come true. Of course I'm happy. I suddenly sighed and pretended to pout. "But you're still hiding something from me." Samuel leaned down and kissed my lips lightly, smiling. "Gloria told you everything during dinner, didn't she?" Since he had already figured it out, I stopped pretending and nodded. "Yeah, she even said quite a few nice things about you." "Then I guess I'll have to give her a promotion and a raise." I rolled my eyes and asked again, "So is there anything else you're hiding from me?" Samuel hesitated for a moment. "There is one more thing." I had only asked casually. I didn't expect there to actually be something. Immediately intrigued, I asked, "What is it?" Samuel looked a little troubled. "Are you sure you want to know now?" "Yes. You won't regret it." "I won't." Samuel looked at me, a hint of helplessness in his eyes. The next second, he took a small blue velvet box out of his coat pocket. A sudden premonition made my heart start racing. Samuel opened the box. Inside lay a dazzling diamond ring. He looked at me, then slowly knelt down on one knee. When he spoke, his voice trembled slightly. "Luviana, will you marry me?" My nose suddenly felt sore. I bit my lip hard, feeling as if everything was as beautiful as a dream. "Samuel, but we just started dating. Wasn't this too fast?" Was he really that sure? Samuel's voice choked slightly. "There was a moment when you almost married someone else. For me. I've already waited long enough." He was right. If Sebastian hadn't failed to show up that day, there would never have been a Samuel and me. I nodded, no longer hesitating, and extended my right hand. Samuel gently slipped the ring onto my ring finger. Then he stood up, and under the bright lights of the city street, we kissed passionately. Later, I asked him why he had asked me whether I would regret it. Samuel sighed. "I originally planned to prepare a romantic ceremony before proposing. Who knew you'd be so impatient?" Realizing what I had missed made me feel slightly regretful, so I comforted myself. "Everything happens for a reason." Samuel shook his head and laughed softly. "That's not fate. That's called a plan I've been working on for a long time."